So, welcome back to the second half of the story of the cat daddy, AJ Allmendinger. Now, this is the second half, so if you want to hear where his career started, then be sure to go back and watch the first part of this video. It should be linked below, as well as in the corner of the video. But this part of the video picks up with AJ just leaving the Champ Car series and agreeing to switch to NASCAR with Team Red Bull. This jump comes with a whole new set of challenges that almost feels like he is restarting his career. Not to mention, he is still to face the challenges of being suspended from NASCAR, leading the Indy 500, winning the Daytona 24 Hours, and helping build a new race team after he thought he had retired. So how does someone who never really cared for oval racing make the full switch to NASCAR?
That means the world to me, thank you. You all are what makes this so much fun.
As a young child who picked road racing over ovals, and an adult who was glad to not race ovals more than once or twice a year, why did he leave a winning Champ Car team to accept a lucrative deal from Red Bull to race in NASCAR, which is of course primarily ovals? He wants to be clear he had a good reason. AJ could feel the end of Champ Car coming, and he knew not all drivers would find a seat in the new combined American open-wheeled series. He also wasn't satisfied with the safety of racing open-wheeled cars on ovals, as was the commonplace in the Indy Racing League, which was the other half of the open-wheeled scene in the US. When considering his options, he consulted his longtime friend and supporter Paul Tracy, and PT told him, if you don't take an opportunity to go to NASCAR, you are a freaking moron. When you consider that Champ Car World Series would have its last race just a little more than a year later, his hunch that the series was coming to an end was correct. AJ had run 3 NASCAR Truck Series races before the end of the 2006 year, and the plan from Red Bull was to run AJ in 85 races between the NASCAR Cup, Busch, and Truck Series in 2007. AJ knew he had a lot to learn, but if Red Bull was behind the deal, he should be paired with decent teams, so even a bad drive in the lower division should easily be a top 15 finish while he was learning. Unfortunately, Red Bull did not stick to their plan. They were so focused on going Cup racing, AJ only did 9 truck races that year for a not very dominant team. He would still manage a second place finish in his 5th race for Darrell Waltrip Motorsports at Charlotte Motor Speedway. However, in the Cup Series, the Red Bull team was struggling. At this time in NASCAR, qualifying wasn't based purely on speed. Cars were given a free pass based on the team's owner's points, or if a past champion was driving a car. Under these rules, a slower car could remove a faster one from the field. AJ's teammate at Red Bull was Brian Vickers, who in his previous year driving for Hendrick Motorsports had a decent qualifying average. However, he was only able to make 23 of 36 races with Red Bull, and AJ only managed 17. He says once in the race, Brian was pretty quick, but AJ still struggled to be competitive. By the end of the year, he was able to talk Red Bull into getting him a handful of races in the Busch Series driving for Chip Ganassi Racing to continue to try to learn and improve. In 2008, he would fail to qualify for the first 3 races of the year. As a result, the team would replace him with Mike Skinner for 5 races, who would manage to qualify for all races, but only have a best finish of 27th. After AJ returned to the car, he would not fail to qualify for another race during his time at Team Red Bull. More than that, he would win the NASCAR Open and qualify for the All-Star race and get top 10 finishes at Indianapolis and Kansas. However, he says by this point, he was using all of the money he received in the Red Bull signing deal just to pay to continue to race. AJ would find himself dropped from the team permanently after Kansas and would be replaced by Scott Speed following his rocky departure from the Toro Rosso F1 team. After this, AJ would drive a race for Michael Waltrip Racing and then work out a 5-race deal at Gillette Evernham Motorsports to replace fellow open-wheel driver Patrick Carpentier. In these races, he would often outrun his teammates, and as a result, the team wanted to sign him to replace Elliott Sadler in the number 19 car. However, Elliott was both very popular with the fans and also still had a contract with the team, so he threatened to sue both the team and AJ to keep his ride. AJ would sign to drive the number 44 for Richard Petty Motorsports in 2009. He finished 3rd in his first Daytona 500, becoming one of the best finishes for a first-time competitor in the race, and would get 5 more top 10 finishes that year. The year 2010 would see further improvements while driving the number 43 car for Petty Motorsports. and 2011 would see the best performance in his NASCAR career so far, finishing just outside the chase, 15th in point standings. He says he also had 2 chances to win at Dover that year, but one time his engine blew up and the other he got a flat tire while leading. This would also be the best championship finish for Richard Petty Motorsports since the merger with Gillette Evernham Motorsports, and is still the best finish for any car under the Petty name since 1999. In addition to NASCAR, AJ had been running the 24 Hours of Daytona for his friend Michael Shank since 2006. But finally, in 2012, the team would be victorious, finishing first overall, with AJ being paired with his longtime friend and former teammate Justin Wilson, longtime friend Oswaldo Negri Jr., and renowned American racer John Pugh.
I'm so worn out.
When you saw those cars spin on those last few laps, were you worried about full course caution?
Yeah, I didn't want to have to do that. I haven't won for 5 years. I didn't want to have to do it green, white, checkered.
This year would also see AJ being hired to drive the number 22 car for Roger Penske, replacing Kurt Busch. AJ says he didn't want to leave Petty Motorsports, but they were looking for money and the Best Buy sponsor was leaving. But it was a dream to drive for Penske, so this was a shining light. However, the light was about to be engulfed in shadows. The year didn't start off well. The car was fast, but pit road mistakes, driver mistakes, and equipment failures saw AJ low in the championship points by mid-season. The only high points were a pole at Kansas and a second place at Martinsville. AJ was also experiencing a divorce at this time, and things were pretty stressful. At the time of that year's Kentucky race, AJ went out with some friends to have a good time and relax. While out, AJ was complaining of both mental and physical fatigue, so a friend of his friend suggested he try out the workout supplement he uses for fatigue. AJ didn't give it a second thought because he already took plenty of supplements. Before the next Cup race, AJ was notified he had failed a NASCAR drug test. The team requested another test, and he failed again. Driving home from receiving the news about the second test, AJ says he put the dots together. He called his friend in Kentucky to ask what was the supplement he had taken. He said he didn't know, but he would ask his friend. And his friend said that it was Adderall. AJ says at the time he didn't even know what Adderall was, and was imagining only hardcore drugs were things that could invalidate drug tests. Allmendinger was suspended from NASCAR. He says Roger Penske was very kind, but understandably he had to remove AJ from the car. AJ says thinking back to all the things he had lost at this time, and the shame he had brought onto the Penske name, he had considered jumping from his hotel. But he says Roger was the angel during this time that really helped him. Roger kept in touch with AJ and even paid him for the rest of the year. He says it was the personal care and contact that meant the most to him. AJ completed the Road to Recovery program with NASCAR and was reinstated to race by the end of the year, again replacing Kurt Busch at the fittingly named Phoenix Racing. In the following year, Mike Shank called him for another Daytona 24, and Roger Penske called him to race some IndyCar races, wishing to keep him associated with the team. He would race 6 IndyCar races that year and even qualify 5th in the Indy 500. He would then end up leading the race on pure pace, but his seatbelts would come undone entering turn 1 a little past midway in the race. AJ says he remembers trying to redo his belts going down the backstretch and looking up at the pagoda wondering what to do. He says if there was only a few laps left, he probably would have kept going, but with around 80 laps to go, he had to come in and get them fixed. Unfortunately for AJ, there were few cautions in the second half of the race, but he would still manage to finish 7th behind eventual winner Tony Kanaan. Roger would also have AJ run Xfinity Series races for him at Road America and Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, where he would win both. In the Cup Series, he had a sporadic year, as he would race in 18 races between Phoenix and JTG Daughtry Racing, getting a 10th place finish with JTG at Watkins Glen. In 2014, AJ would join JTG Daughtry Racing full-time and get his first NASCAR Cup win at Watkins Glen. At the time of writing, this is still the only win for the team. He would also make the new NASCAR Chase format, finishing the year 13th in points, being both his and the team's best championship finish to date of writing. Unfortunately, the next few years would see an overall decrease in performance for AJ and the team. There would be a smattering of top 10s and several near wins at tracks like Daytona, Martinsville, and Watkins Glen, but nothing to rival the glory of 2014. In 2017, the JTG team wanted to expand to fielding a second car, but AJ says he didn't feel they were really in a position to expand properly and the performance for the team slipped further. Even though AJ still had 2 years left on his contract with the team, by the end of 2018, the two entities had decided to part ways. AJ thought he was done with racing and was headed to join the NBC Sports booth as a commentator for various racing series. Shortly after this began, he was contacted by Chris Rice and Matt Kaulig to drive road courses and super speedway races for their new Xfinity Series team. He agreed to do road courses and begrudgingly agreed to do super speedway races as well. AJ says he really enjoyed the atmosphere of the team. It felt like a family, and after 2 years of part-time competition, he began racing full-time for the team in Xfinity and part-time in the Cup Series in 2021. He's won races every year in the Xfinity Series, and in his first full year was competitive for the championship. He even won another Cup Series race and a part-time entry at the Indy GP road course for the team. AJ says the hardest thing he has had to deal with was the loss of his best friend Justin Wilson in 2015. After his passing, AJ vowed to never step foot in another open-wheeled car until they had a better form of head protection. He also reflects about how pointless of a career racing is to the reality of the whole world. No one out there is curing cancer. What they do isn't really that important, but when it's all you know, it's all that matters to you. AJ says he spent a large part of his career where all he knew was winning, and another where he never won. It has taught him to take advantage of the highs. If you win, celebrate them. You were never promised another win another day. Everything has helped give him some perspective on how to live and think, but it is still hard to deal with at times. He has also jokingly said he really thought he struggled until he was teammates with Will Power and said that guy was mental. When asked if he would change anything about his decisions during his career, he says he wouldn't. While the event of taking the random pill really derailed his career, a lot of good things came from it. His opportunity to run the Indy 500 in 2013 led him to meeting his current wife. He met great people at Phoenix and JTG Doherty racing teams, and then again at Kaulig Racing. He also says his time in the NASCAR Road to Recovery program helped him to realize his value as a human doesn't solely rely on if he wins the next race or not. He says ultimately, when people think about the career and ability of the man AJ Allmendinger, he doesn't really care if they think he was talented or not, but he wants people to know, every time I drove, I gave everything.
I didn't expect this, so why not go for everything you got? You never know how long you got left, so I'm going to run every lap like it's my last one, because it might be, and that's what it's all about. That's the way it should be.
So thanks for joining me on this 2-part video spill on AJ Allmendinger. And if you haven't seen the first part, be sure to go check it out. And if you like this stuff, then like and subscribe, and let me know what I could improve on with audio, editing, speech, etc. Now, in making this video, I heard one interview where they asked AJ who he hated losing to the most in his career. And one of the people he named, the reason he gave as to why was because he didn't look like a race car driver, he just looked like a nice Frenchman with glasses. So who do you think it is? And come back next time for when we fish up the answer. And for now, I'll see you next time on Driver Profiles.